Good morning. This is Karen Dodson from the All of Us Research Program at the Medical College of Wisconsin. And we're just so glad that you're going to sit at the table with us today. We're going to have a wonderful and an interesting topic that we'll be talking about. And it's going to be related to alcohol and cancer. But before I get going, I just wanted to remind people that you can always call in if you have questions. We have Dr. Kevin Izzard with us today.
Good morning.
One of my favorite, I tell you. One of my favorite, but this man is so busy. So I really appreciate that he takes the time to come in and talk with us. He's also a co-investigator for our program. He works along and also oversees Kareem City Society. So he's a busy man along with his regular job, right?
Good morning. Yes, I am. Well, I'm busy enough. Put it that way.
And also praise leader or something like that.
Yeah. So that's what I do in my free time when I'm at not working. I'm involved with my church. I'm an elder at my church, and I'm a praise and worship leader. So everybody, you got to find something to do that that you can find enjoyment and relaxation from, where you can kind of get in the zone. And music is my thing.
And so that's a good thing. Music we talked about that. I think last month we talked about, the comforts of music and what it can do for you. So, just take the doctor's advice and sometimes just go and enjoy some music. But I just wanted to also mention to you that the All of Us Research Program, if you're interested in joining our program, you can reach us at 414-955-2689. The ultimate goal of this program is to build the largest database. And right now we are considered in the world the largest database. So we're excited about that. We're excited about you providing your information to us because it allows for researchers and your physicians to be more knowledgeable about how to be more precise with your health care.
That's right.
What's your comments on that, Dr. Izzard?
Well, first of all, welcome to the table, everybody. Pull up a chair. If you're not at the table, you're on the menu.
And I don't want to be on the menu. I want to be at the table. So I want you to join us today. And you can call in at 414-444-5250. And, I was just thinking about the holiday. And a lot of us did a lot of celebrations. We were out there enjoying ourselves. And what comes along with celebration a lot of times, Dr. Izzard?
A lot of drinking, and along with the drinking comes, a lot of risky behavior and a lot of fighting and all the other stuff that happens, Yeah. Devo's laughing like he's, no.
Was that his house?
Somebody pulls a knife.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Okay. But a lot of that. And,
Wisconsin, Wisconsin, we are kind of an outlier with the rest of the country as far as alcohol consumption. Wisconsin is a big drinking state, and Milwaukee is is the beer capital. We do a lot of drinking.
We really do. And so when we look at that, when we start thinking about alcohol, we wanted to bring it to your attention that not only does it alter sometimes our behavior, our thoughts, physically, you can get sick from it, if you drink too much, but also it has an effect on our bodies in different ways, Dr. Izzard. You want to speak to that?
The thing about alcohol is this. Alcohol is, I tell people, if I ask someone how much you drink, how many alcoholic beverages do you drink a week? If someone says they drink 14 beverages in a week, that's not so bad. Okay, you're having 2 beers. Now, what we consider a drink is equivalency amount of alcohol in a drink would be a shot has about the same amount of alcohol as a beer, has about the same amount of alcohol as a glass of wine. Okay. And so some people think, well, I don't drink, I just drink beer. Well, beer's got alcohol in it. So, if you drink a 6-pack of beer, that's, you got a significant amount of alcohol in you. But if you have 14 beverages and it's 2 a day, not so big a deal. But if you have 14 on Friday and Saturday, that's another thing. So
they call that binge drinking.
That's right. Yeah. So you're right. It depends on how you distribute the alcohol, and a lot of it depends on your size too. So if you're a big, heavy man, your body's able to absorb that alcohol better than if you're a 120-pound woman. Two beverages can actually, alcoholic beverages can actually make you intoxicated. And intoxication basically is, when you have more alcohol in your system than your liver is able to detoxify. So anytime you have anything in your body that's not supposed to be there, your liver's job is to break it down and get rid of it. So alcohol is one of those things, and if you have alcohol in your system and your body is able to break it down, as what it's doing what's supposed to do. But if you have too much that your liver is unable to break it down fast enough, well, then you become intoxicated. You get buzzed. Okay, and so
Buzz, that's one of those words way back in the day.
yep. So you've probably seen the billboards for like buzz drinking, buzz driving. Anytime you get that buzz feeling, that means that your brain is being affected by the alcohol. So,
Well, isn't that what people drink for, to get affected by it?
yeah. So, well, that's brings up another
I
thing
mean,
too,
really.
because a lot of people, we know that people who have an alcohol problem, either the alcoholic or alcoholic dependent, um, they, a lot of times they're treating things within themselves, so that's, they're, they're treating anxiety. And so they drink, and they might not do it consciously, but, they have anxiety. And so they drink alcohol to relax themselves. And so oftentimes, when we try to treat people's alcoholism, we try to look for an underlying cause of it. And maybe they have untreated anxiety or some other, psychological issue that's driving that.
It's called self-medication,
It sure is.
because a lot of times we look for something that's going to soothe us and make us feel better. But the other thing that was so significant when I was doing the research related to alcohol is also there's some relationship with cancer.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so when I was looking at that, and it was so interesting, and one thing that I read, that when, like Dr. Izzard, you mentioned about 2 drinks for the woman is a lot different. Why is that? Because of size, and also because our bodies digest it a little slower
Mm-hmm.
than the men do. And so that was one of the reasons why it affects women a lot more than men.
Mm-hmm.
On the other side, it can also alter our DNA as far as with our cells, and how cancer sometimes is related to
Yeah.
alcohol.
Yeah, there's a whole another subject called epigenetics. Where this idea. Now, I remember taking biology way back when I was in high school, and there was this. People used to think back, back in the 1800s. They used to think that there was an example of a giraffe. So the theory was there was an animal that looked like a giraffe, had a short neck, and the giraffe kept stretching his neck, trying to reach higher up in a tree. And as it stretched its neck got longer, and then it passed that on to its children. Well, we know now what we know about biology. With those who remember your biology, Gregor Mendel, who does experiments with peas. Basically, he was a gardener. I think he was a priest, and he started mixing these peas, and found out he could make the flowers of the peas. They can make the flowers red, white, or pink,
Mm.
and pink meant the mixture of the red and the white. And they found they can make the seeds, the peas themselves, either wrinkled or smooth. And so that's why this whole um, uh, study of genetics came about, because a lot of the work done by Gregor Mendel. But that whole idea was debunked about the animal stretching its neck and passing it on to its progeny. Well, we're kind of coming back to that now, and we are realizing that there are things that can happen to a person after they're born. Because not just the genes you're born with, there are things that can happen to you in your environment that turn on different genes.
Mhm.
And so, so alcohol can be one of these things that can turn on some of these other things that might cause cancer or other illnesses. And we talked in the past about liver disease, and that's a huge problem. There's the two big causes for liver disease is one's metabolic. Um, they usually call it non-alcoholic steatohepatitis, but it's they changed the name now to metabolic associated steatohepatitis. So um,
That's.
uh,
Can you say that again?
metabolic,
Uh huh. What else did you
yeah,
say? I,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
know, right? I mean,
right.
like, I want people to really get this because when we hear these terms, I need to break it down a little bit
Hmm.
for the layman.
Yeah.
So sometimes,
So it's metabolic dysfunction, okay, associated, steatotic hepatitis.
mm.
Okay. I'm sorry, liver disease. I'm sorry, liver
So
disease.
we've
So
heard
we
about
call
that
it
before. Yes.
masled, masled, MASLD. So that's a condition a lot of us have where um, because you're overweight and because you're have a high insulin level. Well, what happens when you become overweight, your body becomes resistant to the insulin. So you eat a lot of sugar and stuff. Your body makes insulin as a response to that. Well, that insulin drives that blood sugar from your bloodstream into your muscles and into your liver. Okay, so your liver can't use all that; it turns it to fat, and so you end up getting fatty liver disease. And we know that people that get this fatty liver eventually can develop either cirrhosis, where the liver starts to die, or they can even they're prone to developing liver cancer. And so that's one of the things that causes it. The other one that causes that same situation is alcohol. So alcohol, like I said, the liver detoxifies it. So you get too much alcohol, you start killing liver cells, and if the liver cells die off, then you develop cirrhosis, scarring of your liver. And I think everybody knows about that end result. Someone alcoholics who really drink a lot, they can develop liver disease. But that yeah, when you start killing off your liver cells and they start to grow back and things, you also make it prone to developing cancers. So and they're gonna have a guest come in and talk more about the cancer association with drinking. But we know that drinking can affect your kidneys. Um, it can your kidney cancer risk is higher. Stomach cancer risk is higher. So
Mhm.
um, yeah, you got to be careful with alcohol. We can't take it for granted because it's legal and so a lot of people drink. But alcohol is you talking about drugs. Alcohol is the most commonly abused drug.
And you think that because you can just easily buy it over the counter, as long as you're 18 or
Hmm.
21 now, I really forget the age for being able to buy it, but yet and still
21.
21 now, yeah.
Hmm.
So even though it's so easily to buy at that age, and above, yet and still it can be one of the most harmful things. When I was doing my research, doctor, and I was looking at how they were saying that people related to smoking and drinking, and how the alcohol causes the cells not to be able to fight off
Hmm.
certain things as easy, because the alcohol kind of hinders that.
Yeah, the
And
alcohol in your system, yeah, affects your immune system, and so yeah, right. So you're unable to fight off because if you think about cancer, cancers are just kind of rogue cells that, for some reason, the signal in that cell when it reproduces gets turned off, and so that cell keeps reproducing. And so now, your first defense against that is that your immune system sees these cells, these rogue cells, and hopefully your immune system kicks in and kills that cell before it goes someplace else and starts to divide and cause problems. But when your immune system's affected, you're not able to kill off of those cells, and so yeah, it makes you more prone to developing cancers.
so, when you start talking about cancer, because I was, doing assessment of some of my friends and family members, and most of them, I mean, I was just talking with my sister the other day, and we were just saying that, as we get older, more and more of our loved ones and people, friends have gone on, and sometimes even younger, some of our friends' children, and it's mostly because of cancer.
Hmm.
And so, when I started thinking about that, I'm like, this really affects our families, our community.
Hmm.
And so, looking at how we can better respond to this major, major crises that we have called cancer
Hmm.
in as it relates to our health is so needed,
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
so, as I
Yeah.
keep looking at that, I keep thinking, like, what can we do as individuals? What can we do to make sure that we respond better for our
Oh, you know what I'm
health?
gonna say here because
What's that?
best thing you can do to if you want to prevent yourself from dying from cancer is to make sure you get your screenings done. And
Mm.
the number one cause of cancer, of causing death, is cigarette smoking, still lung cancer for both men and women. If you look at individually, breast cancer, most common in women, and prostate cancer in men. So you gotta get screened for those things. Colon cancer is right behind there. So if you're a man, if you're over 45, get your, actually both of you, men and women over 45, get your colonoscopy. Now, every once in a while, you can find someone who falls out of that age range. So you get someone like Chadwick Boseman, who was only, I think it's 42.
He was very
Yeah,
young.
he was young. He went in a screening age, but and that's another reason it's important to know your medical history, your family history, because if we start screening for cancers about 10 years before your relative developed that. So if you said if someone come to me and said, yeah, my brother had prostate cancer at 50, well, we're not going to start waiting to 50 to start screening him. We're going to start screening him at 40. We want to go 10 years before that. But yeah, for a colonoscopy, 45, same thing. If you can't do the colonoscopy, then do something like Cologuard, or there's other tests you can do. But the preferred one would be the colonoscopy, because you get that done. If it's clean, you're good for 10 years. You got to worry about it again. The Cologuard, you got to do it again in 3 years. Women, breast cancer, screening for breast cancer, 40. And we kind of go back and forth about the age for that, but basically, I think people genuinely agree 40 years old is a good age to start screening for your mammograms. And then for colon cancer, we talked about prostate cancer, 45 if you're high risk. So if you're African American, we consider that high risk. So we consider 45 the screening age for that. Otherwise, it's 50. Or if you have a first degree relative, like a brother or a father, then you should screen at 45 for that group. And then lung cancer. And this is one that's probably under screened. So there's an organization called the U.S. Preventive, I can't even say, the U.S. Preventive Services Task Force, and they make recommendations about screening tests. So like the Pap smears and the mammograms and all that. So there was a time where people were getting chest X-rays to screen for lung cancer. And what they found was that by the time you were able to detect a cancer on an X-ray, it really didn't make a difference as far as the life extending your lifespan, because by that time you probably would have started having some symptoms. You'd have a cough, you'd have blood in your sputum, you have something that indicated that the cancer was there. So doing an X-ray didn't shorten that period. Not only that, the X-rays, of course, have radiation, which increases your risk for cancer. So X-rays are out for screening. But as time went on, and going back to research, what they found doing research was that doing a low-density CAT scan can detect cancer early enough that it can make a difference. So for anybody who's had a 15 pack year history. So we consider that the equivalent to smoking for 15 years, a pack a day for 15 years. If you're a smoker and you smoke within the last 15 years, then doing that low density CAT scan is something that would detect the cancer early enough. So when you talk to your doctor about screening, ask for that lung cancer screening as a low density CAT scan. Good thing about it is that the Affordable Care Act mandates that insurance companies cover it, so you don't get billed for it. So ask your doctor for it. But better yet, quit smoking.
So you mentioned also the 15 years. So people that have smoked 15 years, one pack of cigarettes, that's going to be something that's going to affect them a lot quicker with cancer, possibly.
Yeah. So the longer you smoke, of course, the more. So you got people that smoke, the chain smokers. They might smoke 2 packs a day. Their risk is higher than someone who smokes 1 pack a day, and also the length of time that you smoke.
This is Karen Dodson from the All of Us Research Program at the Medical College of Wisconsin, along with Dr. Kevin Izzard. We're going to take a quick break. If you're interested in talking to us, coming and sitting at the table with us today, please call us at 414-444-5250. That's 414-444-5250. We'll be back on the other side.
Milwaukee, you've seen prices rise.
program. I have Dr. Kevin Izzard with us. Good morning. And it's kind of rainy. It's a little cloudy. We had a big 4th of July yesterday, right in almost the middle of the week, which kind of threw us all off. But we're here today to talk about something that we know that a lot of people probably did yesterday is alcohol, and also how it affects those with cancer and high risk individuals with the possibility of cancer as
Yeah.
well.
Hey, I gotta make a correction. So, in the last segment, I said that the screening age was or the threshold for getting that low density CAT scan was 15 pack years. It's 20 pack years. So it's equivalent of smoking a pack a day for 20 years. But you have to have smoked within the last 15 years. So that's where the 15 came from. But yeah, so if you've been a smoker, if you're over age 50 and you've smoked the equivalent of a pack a day of cigarettes for 20 years. So again, that could be so we consider a pack year the equivalent of a pack a day for a year. So 20 pack years, the equivalent of a pack a day for 20 years. It could also be if you smoke 2 packs a day for 10 years, that would be the equivalent. So, but yeah, see your doctor about getting screened for that, because that's a test that is being underutilized. People aren't getting that test.
And one thing when I was reading, it also spoke about the issues where when you smoke and drink, it allows for the cells not to really fight some of those other things that are going on with the chemicals of the cigarettes related to your mouth, and a lot of times that's how cancer, the mouth, the throat.
Yeah, right. So even people who don't smoke, because what we think about the cigarette smoking is really it's not the nicotine in the cigarettes. It's the carcinogens. It's that burning that tobacco that causes these chemicals or free radicals in your system that actually interact and cause cancers. But we know that even people who chew tobacco, increases your risk for head and neck cancer and mouth cancer, throat cancer. So if you can avoid it, smoking is bad news. My mom used to smoke when I was a kid. I remember going to the store when I was a kid. She'd write a note.
Yeah, at that time you could do that,
yeah,
right?
Right. No, I take it to the store, get her a pack of more regular cigarettes. Got to be the red ones, not the menthol. And then bring it home, and of course, they can't sell cigarette to minors anymore, even with a note. But yeah, things have changed a lot, with smoking. Back in the day, back in the in the late 50s, 60s, they used to they had commercial. You see some of these commercials with doctors, saying, "Oh, smoking is good for you. It increases the blood flow to your lungs and that kind of stuff." And this was before the information, and the Surgeon General came out and said that smoking causes cancer, and they labeled that on all the cigarettes. But for a long time, smoking was really sexy and cool, and you see actors and actresses and in movies with cigarettes. It really promoted that, and now I see young people who are picking up smoking, and I'm saying, do you realize I got people who are older than you who wish they could quit, but
What
yeah.
about the vapors?
The vapors. We don't know enough about vaping yet to give any conclusive information, but my thoughts is this. I'm pretty sure that at some point we're going to find down the line that vaping is probably as dangerous as smoking cigarettes. Again, I have no evidence for that yet, but I'm pretty sure that that's going to be scarring the lungs. And at some point we're going to find, maybe after vaping's been around for 20, 30 years, we're going to find that, it's causing lung problems. So I do tell people, if they're vaping to try to quit smoking cigarettes, well, I'd rather for you to vape for something, because vaping is something I don't know for sure causes problems, even though it probably does, versus cigarette smoking, which I know causes problems. I'd rather for you to vape than to smoke cigarettes. But yeah, the vaping thing is really of concern, because a lot of young people are vaping. And so we don't know what's going to happen to those people 20 years from now, 30 years from now. So that's a concern. Um, so, better yet, don't do any of it.
And we're talking today. We're sitting at the table. We're asking you to call in and sit at the table with us. Some of you all might just be getting your coffee, your tea this morning, your juice. So I want to welcome you to the table. This is Karen Dotson from the All of Us Research Program at the Medical College of Wisconsin. And we have Dr. Kevin Izzard joining us today just to talk more about what it takes related to alcohol and also cancer. And we had to put in there about smoking as well, because there are some interrelationships with people that drink,
Hmm.
also smoke a lot, or
Yeah.
vice versa sometimes.
I got
But
people that tell me that they don't really smoke until they unless they're going out and drinking. So
wow,
they
yeah,
they kind of associate those things
the
together.
cigarette with the alcohol just
Yeah, yeah.
does good together. And so that's something that people, and I say does good together for them, but not
Hmm.
for your body, right?
Right,
So
right,
I want to
right.
make sure I clarify that.
Mm,
But also, when I was thinking about alcohol
mm-hmm.
and I was looking at, how it affects women, and it mentions that it also can increase the levels of estrogen in your body.
Mm-hmm.
And those that are suffering with breast cancer, how does that work,
Yeah,
Dr. Izzard?
yeah. So right, so you definitely want to, if you have estrogen sensitive breast cancer, you want to avoid alcohol. Um, this might be interesting for men because we know that men that drink too much and that estrogen can actually cause, it's called gynecomastia. So men who develop breast tissue. So that might be something that's contributing to that also. And if you're concerned about your testosterone level and your sex drive, that can be all that can be thrown off by alcohol. So how do you know if you drink too much alcohol? Because again, I said Wisconsin, we're a big drinking state, and so it's all relative. So we might think, oh, well, everybody around me, drinks beer, so I got a 6 pack in the refrigerator, and I just kind of drink it, when it's hot outside. So we kind of have a skewed view of how much is normal. So we got the screening test that we do called CAGE questionnaire, CAGE. And so it's kind of something we use to kind of screen for whether if you have an alcohol consumption problem. So C stands for cut out or cut down. So we ask people, do you ever feel like feel like you need to cut down how much you drink? That's one of those red flags if you feel like you need to cut down, because either um, you're concerned about how much you're drinking, or other people around you are concerned about how much you're drinking. A is for annoyed. Are you getting annoyed by people talking about your drinking? Again, that's another red flag if people are annoyed by your drinking, or you're annoyed because people are bugging you about how much you drink. Uh, G is for guilt. Do you feel guilty about how much you're drinking? And then the last one is E. Do you feel like you need an eye opener that you even drink in the morning or early in the day as an eye opener to get you going? So those are questions that if you answer yes to them, might indicate that you have a drinking problem. And so there's something to discuss with your doctor. A lot of times we don't, people don't disclose that stuff, and unless we ask specifically, people won't voluntarily tell you about it. Um, but yeah, though, if you answer yes to any of those questions, you should really reassess how much you're drinking and probably have a conversation with your doctor about it.
That's one thing that you mentioned that I would want to bring to the attention is that the All of Us Research Program, we have like a survey that when you join our program, we ask certain questions about your health, your behaviors. And um, it was interesting that it said that the researchers counted more than 15,000 All of Us participants who reported a cancer diagnosis. Of these, nearly 4 of 5 said they currently drink alcohol. And so it shows that a lot of people, even though they've been diagnosed with cancer, they still drink alcohol. And it can really affect them in multiple different ways. And when I was also doing my research, it mentioned that the factors that are important as far as some of the things that alcohol can affect are different types of cancers. Like you might have cancer in one place, and if you drink a lot, it might reoccur somewhere else.
Hmm.
Dr. Izzard, you want to speak to that?
Yeah, yeah. So like we mentioned before, your immune system is very important in kind of keeping cancer cells, rogue cells, keep them at bay. And so when your immune system is affected, those cancers can get active again and spread. And again, your immune system is not knocking them down. So um, I would say, if you have any kind of cancer, whether it's lung cancer, prostate cancer, colon cancer, cervical cancer, that if you've been treated for that condition, you need to really reassess your life and take out those things that might contribute to your cancer coming back. And looks like that's talking about your diet and your drinking.
One thing I always want to tell people, regardless, when you go to the doctor, be honest. I know I am. I'm totally honest when when you go see a lawyer or a doctor, this is where you're honest with them, because they won't be able to help you if you don't come clean.
That's the truth.
Okay. And so when I go to the doctor's office, I'll say all these different things. And one time my doctor said, "Well, Karen, it looks like you need to exercise more. Looks like you're out of shape." And I was like, okay. And so and so don't tell them about everything else until you get yourself in order.
That's right. Yeah.
And so, but seriously, it's important, because the type of treatment that you might be receiving, if you don't tell your physician that you are drinking, it could affect the medication, the results of that medication.
And a lot of times, I might find out from the wife. The wife will call me after the husband had a visit and says, "Did he tell you how much he drinks?"
We always be looking out for him, aren't we?
Debo's over here laughing. Yeah, the wife will tell. Yeah. But yeah, a lot of times, either they don't consider the problem, or they don't want to address it, or they don't want to have to, because when you're confronted with it, now you have to address it. And so, a lot of times people kind of blow it off. I had one guy who I just found out he had been drinking a lot and hadn't really disclosed it. He came back and he had stopped drinking. He's now in AA and is actually doing sponsoring his first person. And it's a religious, it's almost a religious experience to have going through AA. He had to reassess his life. He had to, to apologize to people he had wronged, and I was listening to him talk about his experience with AA. It is, you're fellowshipping with other people, other alcoholics, other sinners, as we would put in the religious community, and you have to acknowledge your sins, and then make amends for them. That's part of, again, it's a religious experience. And so, and then you have to come to terms that, that you have this addiction, and that you have to submit to, now they say a higher power, in the religious community, we talk about that being God. But now this whole thing about you can make a chair your higher power, I don't know about that. You got to find something that, really that you think is higher than you. And, but yeah, that's AA's been around for a long time, and it changed a whole lot of people's lives. But yeah, this guy had not disclosed to me that, how much he was drinking. And it just kind of undercuts this whole thing about, well, not undercuts, but kind of supports this whole idea that, unless we're screening for it, a lot of times people won't tell you. So discuss these things with your provider. First of all, have a provider. You got to have a doctor, nurse practitioner, physician assistant, somebody that you see who knows you, because when you know somebody, you can see things start to happen. You can see that, oh man, okay, so you got a DWI. What's going on here? Or why did your wife drive you in? Well, you lost your license. Why is that? Or you've been missing a lot of work. Or you're in the ER a lot for stuff. What's going on? Or you got a tremor. So a lot of these things are kind of subtle. And if you're just getting your care in the emergency room, people aren't going to pick up on these things, and the people aren't going to really screen for them. So you got to get in and get your, get your screening visits, your preventative health visits. But and as Karen said, you gotta be honest. You gotta disclose those things, because people can't help you if you don't disclose it. And and again, there's a lot of rules about confidentiality rules. So I can't tell someone's wife that they something's going on. Now sometimes the wife will call me and tell me, but I can't really, tell her back unless I got permission from that person. Um,
So you would just say thank you for the information and not say if he did or did not say
Yep,
anything.
yep. And I said, yeah, thank you. I said I can't really discuss this, discuss it back with you, but I will address this with him.
All right. You know, start looking at what is considered hazardous drinking. So I'm going to break this down a little bit. It says one serving of alcohol equals one bottle of beer, that's 12 ounces, a glass of malt liquor, 8 ounces, wine, 5 ounces, and a shot, 1.5 ounces, as considered serving. But then when you start looking at what is considered hazardous drinking, drinking 3 or 4 drinks a day, 2 to 3 times a week. So that's only three to
Hmm.
four drinks a day, 2 to 3 times a week is
Mm-hmm.
considered hazardous. Drinking 5 or 6 drinks at a time, 2 to 4 times a month is considered hazardous. And drinking 4 or more times a week is considered hazardous.
Mm-hmm.
And I think about it like, how many people do we know that really sometimes do that?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, is it better to maybe, if you're going to do it in excessive, just do it like every once in a while? I mean, because some people are like, well, every once in a while, I just need a little bit more, doctor.
Right. Right. I think it's more of a. Can you talk about, again, I talk about how you just disperse that alcohol, whether it's 2 drinks a day or whether it's 14 drinks on a Friday and Saturday. Um, so I mean, technically your body's able to, to detoxify and keep up with 2 drinks. But if you're drinking every day, even just 2 drinks, it causes the question why? Why are you drinking? Why do you feel the need to drink alcohol every day? And so, and again, and that goes back to those questions we were asking about, is there some underlying issue that you're drinking to address? So do you have anxiety? Do you have something else going on? And then that puts you at a higher risk for other things, so you're more prone to over consuming and over drinking if you have those other things going on.
And that is what we need to think about. Why are we really doing it? Because sometimes, you go through a hard day, you say, I need a drink.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it's almost like, do we really need a drink or do we really need to look at the issue? Because once we finish drinking, the issue is still there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so looking at how we handle things is so important as well.
Yeah. The other thing too is I want to throw some support for people family members, who are dealing with an alcoholic. Some of them, are all open and some of them are kind of closeted, but that has a huge toll on people's families, kids and spouses. We talk about men, but women women alcoholics too, and so, they got Al-Anon, these other groups that are for family members of alcoholics. Um, but yeah, it can be even harder on them because they're dealing with all the problems with it. They're their loved one missing work, maybe not bringing home the paycheck because they can't keep a job. They're abusive at home. They're doing all these things, and they can't make them do anything. They can't make them get treatment. They can't make them, take this thing seriously. And so it can be very frustrating and can very um, have a lot of children of alcoholics can first of all they it affects them growing up socially, but also they inherit those genes, so they're more prone to themselves becoming alcoholic. So you got that addictive behavior gene, so maybe they might not drink, but maybe they smoke marijuana every day, or they're doing something else that's they have predisposition for it because of that gene that they inherited from their parent.
You mentioned something that is really important when you said marijuana. So smoking marijuana can also do the same effects of smoking cigarettes, Dr. Izzy?
Oh boy! So this is something that's very interesting. So for years, the marijuana is a Schedule 1 drug, meaning that the FDA says that um, there's no value of it for medical purposes nor for research. And so the Congress made laws that you can't even do research using marijuana. And now they're backing off on that because we need to know what effects does smoking marijuana have, especially now that a lot of states, in fact, half of the states now have either medical marijuana what we call medicinal marijuana, or marijuana just for recreational marijuana. And so Wisconsin, I'm sure it's gonna be coming here. It's just a matter of time. And as more people start to smoke, we're gonna start seeing more things. What effect does it have on the lungs? Does it have the same effect as smoking cigarettes? We don't really know that. How about as far as the big problem with marijuana is this: it's hard. Like with alcohol, there's a direct correlation between how much you drink and your blood alcohol level, and then you can do a breathalyzer and test what someone's alcohol level is based on how much alcohol they're exhaling when they do the breath test, or you can do a blood test again. But for marijuana, it's not the same. There is no breath test you can do for marijuana, although sometimes for those of us who've been around people who smoke, especially that skunk stuff, you walk in a room, you can tell they smoke.
Yeah, you know where they've been or what they've been doing. Right, right.
But they're and people who are daily smokers for marijuana, it doesn't have the same impact on them as someone who smokes occasionally, and so it's hard to regulate when someone is intoxicated from marijuana. So it's not an easy thing to screen for. Like, if you get pulled over for a drink, and they can do a breathalyzer, and they can tell what your level is, but they can't do the same thing for smoking marijuana. So it does become problematic.
And it can also affect the lungs and things like that too, as well, right?
Right. So there's a whole lot of research to be done yet on daily smoking of marijuana and what effect it has on people's health.
We have at the table, we have Deb Nevels joining us. Good morning.
Good morning.
Deb Nevels. How you doing?
I'm good.
I found out last time that Deb and I went to middle school. We went to Webster Middle School.
Webster Middle School.
Yep. And I didn't connect the last name. I said, Deb. Deb said, "Look at me. Do you remember me?" And I'm thinking, now my mind had to go back, 20 years. Actually, more than that.
We won't talk about it.
We won't talk about that. Yeah, but Debbie Davis.
It's too funny. Well, I was listening on my way in, and I wanted to, and you circled back to it. The one thing with cigarette smoke, and one thing that's really popular nowadays that I am asking researchers at the medical college to please start doing research, because there's not enough research on it, is hookah.
Ooh, yes. I would like to know that. I see so much of that now.
Yeah. So understanding that the amount of, if you sit down and smoke hookah, it is 100 to 200 times more smoke than if you smoke a single cigarette.
I see that in the cars and different places. I'm like, how can all that come out of one person?
Yeah, it's the tall
crazy
ones that they have those hookah bars.
Yeah,
and stuff.
Right.
Yeah, and people have the hookah at their home. It is
hookah parties or whatever.
Yeah, it's like smoking 100 cigarettes in one sitting and smoking a hookah. And so, and it's more and more younger people are smoking it. And so my concern is, like you were saying, and like I said, I was listening on the radio, if a doctor asks you how many packs of cigarettes you smoke, that's the standard language, especially to determine if you should be screened for lung cancer. They don't ask about hookah. And I don't know, not everybody, but I'm saying, but docs that it's not on the list. And so if somebody is like 27 years old and is having respiratory issues, it's like, okay, do you smoke cigarettes? It's like, no. You might ask if they smoke marijuana, but there's not a question of if you smoke hookahs.
Right. Yeah. So I ask people, I say, when I say, do you smoke? And they say, you mean like cigarettes?
Yeah.
I know what that means.
Oh, okay. They try to turn it like, okay, just a cigarette, but the other stuff.
No, but yeah. So they smoke marijuana. You know, that's kind of a tale when they say, I say, do you smoke? You mean like cigarettes? Okay.
Well, anything similar. Right. Anything similar.
Yeah, but we don't know. We don't know really, what, because I at the screen we ask about, do you smoke cigarettes, but we don't ask about vaping. And and even with vaping, some of it has nicotine, some of it doesn't. So if you even ask, do you consume nicotine? So we don't have a really good way for screening for those things, and we don't know if the risk of vaping has the same risk as smoking cigarettes.
This is Karen Dotson, and you're at the table with us this morning. I have Dr. Kevin Izzard. Also, I have Deb Nevels from the Medical College of Wisconsin with community outreach and engagement. at the Cancer Center. We're going to come back and we're going to have another special guest. And Deb, I want you to introduce her. Can you let us know who's going to be next joining us?
It is special, very, very special. A friend of mine, Dr. Noelle LeConte. She is from UW-Madison Carbone Cancer Center, and her specialty is alcohol and cancer.
So she's done a lot of research in that
Yes,
area. So we're going to have some deep conversation coming. I'm just going to ask that you stay tuned and stick with us and sit at the table with us this morning. You can call in at 414-444-5250. We'll see you back on the other side. So Deb Nevels.
Good morning. Good morning.
And we also have another special guest that Deb is going to introduce us. Just reading her bio just makes me so happy to be able to talk to someone that can give us some really good answers and also say what else is needed. So we believe in educating the community. So that's what we're doing this morning.
Yeah, and this guest, a friend of mine coming from us, all the way from Madison. I'm sounding like that's like out of the country.
It's just what, an hour away or so there.
It's only an hour away. But from UW Madison Carbone Cancer Center, Dr. Noelle LeConte. She's an oncologist and also an associate professor in the Division of Hematology, Medical Oncology, and Palliative Care within the Department of Medicine. She does a lot of research, and her passion is alcohol and the relationship to cancer burden and cancer incidence. So that's why she's joining us here today.
Good morning, Dr. LeConte.
Good morning, everybody. So happy
Good
to be
morning.
Good morning.
here. Hello.
Pull up a chair.
Okay.
Got your coffee?
Here I am.
You got your coffee, your tea, your juice, and thank you for joining
I got
us
my
at the
coffee.
table this morning.
Happy to be here.
where do we begin? Can you just give us an overview of some of the work that you have done and some of what you have found to be most encouraging and also alarming?
Yes. Yeah, thanks for the question. Briefly, I got into this because I was filling out death certificates. Dr. Izzard probably has to do this too, where we check a box that says, did alcohol contribute to this death? And I was talking to my partners, and we didn't even know when to check yes to the alcohol box when a patient died of cancer. And that told me, if I don't know as an oncologist, community members probably don't know either. So that led me to help write a policy statement for the Society for Oncologists, Cancer Doctors. And that just summarized some of the data, but also set forth policy measures that we support to reduce alcohol-associated cancers. And all my research has kind of fallen from that. So it's 7 types of cancer. The more you drink, the higher your risk. The more consistently you drink, the higher your risk. I'm particularly worried in Wisconsin because we have high rates of alcohol use, but really high rates of binge drinking, which is lots of drinks at one, sitting, like pre-gaming or whatever, tailgating, that kind of thing. But and I'm sure Dr. Izzard has seen this too. Alcohol can just wreck an entire family. And you see tremendous regret from patients after they develop a cancer from their drinking and wish they could do things different. So my main goal is just education so people can make choices in line with their values.
You said something that really struck me, because a lot of events, especially here in Wisconsin, there's alcohol involved in it. You go to the Brewer game, there's tailgating, there's drinking. You go to Packer game, there's drinking. You have a party, there's drinking. I'm planning my 30th wedding anniversary, and none of us drink, so we're not gonna have drinking. But you have a party, you plan a party, and you got to have an open bar. So you have a wedding, there's drinking. So we have drinking so much involved in our, kind of built into our activities in our culture.
Yeah, it's actually harder not to drink. I tried not drinking for a month just to see what it was like for my patients, and sometimes it's easier to just take a drink than to say no.
Wow, that's deep.
So it's easier to take a drink than to say no. Is it because you want to be more sociable, or you want to socialize more with people, or what do you mean by that?
Well, and I mean, think about if you're at a party or a wedding, let's say, where there's a signature cocktail, there's an open bar, and you don't want to drink. So your options are you can have a bottled water or a Coke. And pretty much everybody knows you're not drinking, and then they'll make assumptions about why, or that you're a fun sponge, or, why can't we have adult drinks that are also enjoyable? We have different taste profiles. Like maybe we want some kind of, adult friendly beverage that just doesn't have alcohol in it. But oftentimes that's a difficult thing to find.
Yeah. And also, I was just thinking about what you said about when you go to those events, instead of getting the glass, because they do give you different types of glasses with soda and water. Next time, tell them to put it in a cocktail glass.
Right?
With a cherry.
With a cherry or something, to make it so it doesn't seem so. I mean, there's ways of getting around it too.
But you know what? I personally, I always try to, people know I don't drink. I try to make it people realize I can have fun and not drink. I can still be, a friendly, social person. We can talk to you, and I don't have to have a drink in my hand.
How do you do that, doctor? You just have that knack.
Right.
You just say, I don't care. I'm just going to have fun today.
Exactly, right. Yeah, and now, of course, they have mocktails too. So a lot of places will have these, these mock cocktails if you want to go that route. But you can have fun without being intoxicated. Yeah. So doctor, can you just tell me exactly what are some of the biggest challenges that you feel that your patients have, or looking at the research with the alcohol and also cancer? Because I know you've seen quite a bit in doing your research and also in your practice of working and providing care for individuals.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple challenges. One is just how culturally acceptable it is to drink, which we've touched on. The other is that there's this persistent myth that a little bit of drinking might be good for your heart, which I think has now been fully debunked in my mind, but was very persistent for a very long period of time. And so when there's this kind of noise in the media where people hear like maybe a little drinking is good, maybe it's bad, what happens for lay public is they kind of tune the whole message out. You know, you sort of say, well, the science isn't settled. I'm just going to choose to believe what I want to believe, which is that a little bit of alcohol isn't that bad. But the reality is, from a cancer prevention standpoint, which I realize not everybody makes decisions based solely on cancer, but from a cancer prevention standpoint, there is no safe amount of alcohol.
No safe amount of alcohol.
Yeah, we're just talking about that during the break about how that we've changed that that opinion about a small amount of alcohol daily was protective for heart disease, and how we're rethinking that now.
Yeah, because I remember just reading that having a glass of red wine a day or something like that would help your heart. I've heard that, and people, they were doing studies over in like Europe, but why are those people,
Right.
Because they have wine at dinner and they seem to live longer. Speak to that.
Yeah. Well, I think, a lot of times, I'm sorry, but I think a lot of times we kind of underestimate the fact that, first of all, how much we're drinking, but also that a lot of these people are taking other medications. And so now this alcohol is interacting with other things, so they're on blood thinners and now they're drinking alcohol on top of that, and we don't always consider those things when we say, oh, just have a couple of drinks a day, and that's okay.
Dr.
I think
LeConte.
it ties back to what's called an abstainer bias, meaning we will never have a randomized trial where half the patients take a drink or two a day and half take none. So our best data is going to be asking people retrospectively or even prospectively, how much are you drinking? So food diary type trials. And when you ask people that, there's reasons why people don't drink. There's people that lifelong never drank for religious reasons. There's people that don't drink because they've had some harms come to them because of alcohol. Maybe they have cirrhosis, maybe they've had a heart attack or stroke, and they've chosen to not drink to help their health. That's called an abstainer bias. And those patients who don't drink now get lumped in with the patients that never drank. And when you can separate those, you actually find that the never drinkers have the best health outcomes across the board. And that it's that the zero drinkers currently, the reason why drinking one drink a day looks better than zero is because the people that drink zero had some health harm come to them from their drinking, and that's why they no longer drink. It's called the abstainer bias. The big study that finally proved that definitively came out a year ago, published in JAMA, which is a big medical journal.
We have a caller on the line today. Good morning, caller. You're at the table. Thank you for joining us. You have a question for us?
Yes. Thank you for taking my call.
We can barely hear you. We can barely hear you.
Speaker, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
We can hear you now. Go ahead.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Barely, but yes.
Okay. The last question that you answered, do you have one drink or zero? Well, I don't drink. I used to in my younger day, but even in my younger day, I couldn't drink over 3 drinks. It just made me nasally, or it was like I got congested. So I just stopped drinking. And I think, to say if it's senior bias, I don't know if that's fair or not, or you stopped drinking because you had problems earlier in life. But I have another question, like when you plan an event, even for a repast, and you want to have it at a hall, normally it makes the room cheaper when you have a bar, an open bar to save you money. But at the same token, I don't know if they do like mixed drink, different mixed drinks, like maybe non-alcoholic or 1 or 2 wines, and that's it. But anytime we have affairs at our home, we would never have alcohol.
Yeah.
It'd be all kind of sodas and things like that you could drink. Now, if you want to do something different, after you leave, you go do whatever you want to. I think it keeps down problems. But our society encourages drinking.
Yeah, it really does. It really does. And even in the park, You have a picnic. Someone's got to bring the beer.
Mhm.
Yeah, somebody's responsible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then
And
now we have,
then and when you drink in the heat of the day, that alcohol affects you differently.
Hmm.
I've had some people tell me that when you're drinking and you're out, it intensifies or something.
Yeah, it affects doesn't it affect like the temperature of the body and
Yeah, your ability to regulate your body temperature is affected by alcohol. So that's a big problem, especially in the wintertime. Because they'll be ice fishing or something, and they'll be drinking, and they don't realize how cold they are. They get frostbite.
oh wow. Yeah, Deb, you had
Okay,
something you wanted
thank
to
you for
say.
listening to me, and I,
No, thank you for
yeah.
calling
Thank
Yeah,
in
you
and
thanks
for
for calling.
sitting at the
question.
table with us. We appreciate
all
it.
right.
Anybody else that wants to call in at the table, you can call in at 414-444-5250. Deb, you had something for us.
Yes, I was going to ask Dr. LaConte to speak to the cancers. There's 5, I think I wrote down. There's several cancers that that alcohol puts you at a higher risk, and wondering if you could speak to those.
Yeah. So it depends exactly on how you categorize them, but we lumped 3 of them together. So larynx, pharynx, and mouth. We call that head and neck. Liver cancer, colorectal cancer, which is rising in young people, and we can definitely talk about if alcohol is part of that why. Breast cancer. And then in Canada, they've already added stomach cancer, and they've also added pancreas cancer. And then we also have a type of esophageal cancer, which is the tube that connects your mouth to your stomach. So a lot of GI cancers, which is what I treat.
Yeah, I was going to mention that that's your specialty, are the GI cancers, and so you do
Mm-hmm.
see between liver, pancreatic, stomach, colon, and intestinal cancers. With that being your specialty, it's understood that this would be something of concern to you.
Yeah, it is. It's really hard to see these cancers. It just tears families apart. It's about 5 to 6% of all cancers that are alcohol associated.
Definitely.
So 5 or 6%, but that percentage, when you see that, can you explain like those that uh, have cancer, what is their experience like if they drink or if they don't drink? Can you walk us through that a little bit?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great question. And I should say most of the people that have alcohol associated cancers are not alcoholics. I think that's a common myth too, is, oh, I have to be an alcoholic to have harms, but that's not true in the cancer space. But what we know about alcohol and cancer treatment is that it complicates pretty much every step of the way. Surgery, it takes longer, the recovery is harder, their length of stay in the hospital is longer, their chance of needing to be re-hospitalized is higher. It makes radiation complications more likely. It may make wound healing harder from surgery. And for chemotherapy, it appears as though their rates of recurrence of their cancer is higher, so it may dampen the effectiveness of chemo. And then Dr. Izzard knows this as well as I do, that chronic alcohol use affects your immune system. Patients that are high alcohol users have a lot more infections. And it looks like they may not respond to immunotherapy, which is a newer type of cancer treatment as well for the same reason.
Can you
Wow.
go into detail about this new treatment that you just mentioned?
CAR-T.
Yeah, so immunotherapy, the most common one that people may have heard of is Keytruda. That was the first one on the market. It's intravenous medication meant to ramp up your own immune system to fight off the cancer.
And how often do people have to go through that therapy or treatment, I
It's
should
the
say?
standard of care right now for types of skin cancer and lung cancer, some bladder and kidney cancers as well. And then it has an emerging role in all the other cancers. So I would say in my practice, in the last 20 years, it's been the most instrumental and important change in cancer management.
And Dr. LaConte, isn't Keytruda or this new immunotherapy treatment, isn't it more, it gets us closer to like precision medicine for each patient?
Yeah, I mean, what it gets us closer to, Deb, really is a cure.
Yep.
It's the only
Yes.
treatment I have as a medical oncologist that can eradicate the tumor without surgery.
Awesome.
Wow.
You'd really want every patient to have equal likelihood of benefit.
Can you
Yeah.
just explain a little bit more about eradicate surgery? Explain that to us, because we have people in layman terms, because I'm just,
Yeah.
because I mean, like, we need to break it down, because this is so important. And I'm not a physician. I have my master's in health
Yeah.
services administration, but I'm not a physician. And so a lot of people, when they're hearing this, they don't really comprehend and know exactly what you mean by that. But what you said is
Right.
so important for
It
people
is.
to
It
know
is.
that I want to make sure they get it.
Yeah. And don't let me forget, I did do I published all of us research on alcohol and cancer too. So
I've
we should
been
talk about
reading
that,
too.
'cause
Yes,
know
I
that's
want
part
you
of
definitely to talk
why we're
about it.
here.
Most definitely. I already
Yeah.
pulled it out. Yes.
Yeah. But so the immunotherapy. So this will come as no surprise. So the tools we use for cancer are pretty coarse, meaning used to be chemotherapy just killed every fast growing cell in your body. It didn't care whether it was a cancer cell or your hair follicles or the lining of your gut. And that's why you get the side effects you get. For years, we've been trying to understand how to better use our own bodies to treat our cancer. And our own bodies have an immune system that identifies aberrant cells and says, oh, this is not a good cell, we should kill it. But for reasons we don't understand, cancer evades that surveillance system that's built in. So with immunotherapy, we kind of push the gas pedal on our own immune system to identify cancer cells better. And so your own body attacks and kills those cancer cells. And then what happens is over time, we don't see any more cancer on your scans. And we treat you usually for 1 to 2 years, and then we watch you. So in a tumor where we would normally need surgery, radiation, for what I treat, ostomies, we can avoid all of that in the right patient. As Deb said, there's features of the tumor, the patient that we have to consider. Immunotherapy is not the right treatment for every patient, but where we can use it, we always try to use it.
Reading, doctor, it has been, said and known that a lot of times we might have a cancer cell in our body, and our good cells will push that away. But sometimes what happens is that if the body can't fight it off, or you get too many of them, then they start, replicating. And can you speak to that?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So our own bodies make cancer cells all the time. And most of the time, our body is able to correctly see those and kill them. Cancer cells fundamentally are cells that are immortal. They've lost the ability to die, and that's why they grow and grow and grow and spread. And we don't exactly understand why certain cancer cells can avoid our own immune surveillance, but they can. And so then one cell becomes 2, becomes 4, so on. And that's how eventually you get to be the size of a tumor. We think that a visible tumor on a scan has about 3 million cancer cells in it. That's the point at which we can detect it.
Now, there are some tumors that are not cancerous too, right, doctor?
Yeah, you can have benign growth lesions. And this is part of the problem with language is you see a doctor, one doctor says you have a spot on your lungs, one says you have a tumor on your lungs, one says you have cancer on your lungs, and the impreciseness of the language can be very hard for patients to understand what they're dealing with.
We have a caller on the line this morning. Welcome, caller. You're at the table.
Hello. Oh, thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
Okay. I was listening to your conversation, and it's very interesting to me because I have dealt with it, not me, but within, home and stuff. And it is so serious. It's more serious than you think. I know you know because you deal with it. But, it gets to the point you get liver damage, you get kidney damage, you get brain damage. And it's such a fight. And then and years ago, they used to, now I read where money is cut from the services for a lot of this stuff, the CDC and all that stuff. But years ago, they used to have a DePaul that people that was addicted could go, and they could dry out for 3 months. Now, a lot of money is shifted away. So they send you to the meetings and, they put you in the hospital for to fail in your health. And then they you to the meetings, but cooperation is not there. Go to the meeting. And so I just sit here and I says, well, it's so horrible. Like when they started gutting out our city, they started putting a lot of alcohol stores. And then you got service stations. Then you got grocery stores that left. Then you got the hospitals that want to leave. And it seems like a big death trap. If you start watching documentaries, I was looking at the documentary on Dayton, Ohio. And I have people over there. I mean, very, prosperous people. Prosperous people that was in the civil rights fight. And now you look at the place over there, they're showing you the boarded up houses, the empty houses, how everything left. And when you look at it, it was all systemically done. It started when Clinton signed that NAFTA Act. All the jobs started rolling out of the United States and stuff like that. And then Reagan took the funding, started taking the funding away from the healthcare and stuff. And so, like, they steady do this stuff, and I don't think we, the people, really read about it. And even Donald Trump, he's doing the same thing. They started cutting all this stuff for the help that's needed people can get. And then I live exactly in the central city. I get to watch the death and the destruction. I get to watch women, that look so bad that they're old before they are old. And I says, how did this happen? And I talked to him. I tried to talk to him. But it is more serious than we think. And if you don't live it, you don't see it. It seems like the people that's doing better, that live in the suburbs, they don't care. They get everything they want. But we get in the city here, all the money gets deducted. They say they don't have enough money, but they have a surplus.
Okay, thank you, caller, for sitting at the table with us. Deb, you want to respond to her?
Yeah, I think what the caller is talking about, and it's something that we're all seeing. They're SDOH, or social drivers or social determinants of health. And when you look at the health of an individual, and I think Dr. LeConte definitely approaches her care for her patients this way, you don't just see the illness. You don't just see that the patient needs treatment. You take into consideration all of the aspects that patient may be dealing with. So in order to make sure that a patient can succeed in treatment, you need to understand what their support system looks like. What are their resources? And so a lot of that we wrap around at the cancer centers here in Wisconsin. We wrap around navigation and social workers. I totally agree with the caller in understanding mental health services. Hands down, everyone would agree there's been a lot of funding that's been diverted from that. We have a lack of mental health providers in communities. And so that is one place where there is definitely a deficit. And you pile on top of that a diagnosis of cancer or any chronic illnesses, and it just makes things elevate. Because if you don't have the right mindset when you go into treatment, it does impact your outcomes because you become depressed. You don't, do the things that would normally help you. And especially like we were talking about with drinking, we think the drinking, okay, I'll feel better if I just have a drink. It doesn't. It depresses you more. But understanding, and I think getting communities to understand that the illness or chronic illness, as this caller was talking about, in the family, one person who can be impacted by alcohol or cancer diagnosis or anything like that impacts the entire family,
Yes.
which impacts that community.
Mm-hmm.
It's one person who is not able to contribute in ways that they were able to before. And so understanding that your voice matters and being able to speak up and talk about the fact that we need more mental health services. We need to understand what policies impact cancer services. Part of what the caller was speaking about was funding. I've worked with, taking off my medical college hat completely right now.
Mm-hmm.
I also am a volunteer in Gwen Moore's district for ACS CAN, the Cancer Action Network. We advocate for continued and increased funding for things like the Well Woman program. We advocate for continued and increased funding for NCI, for the research that Dr. LeConte and others like her do. And so understanding that your voice matters. And these are the people that the volunteers that I work with are individuals who are cancer survivors, who are caregivers of cancer patients. the cancer co-survivors, so the spouses or anyone who may have been a partner to someone as they went through their diagnosis and possibly lost their battle. Individuals who are just at the table, who have a perspective and can bring that perspective to the table, can make a difference. And so the things that the caller was mentioning, such as mental health services, we advocate from a cancer center perspective. Again, the cancer centers in Wisconsin, we advocate for a comprehensive, holistic approach to not just looking at the diagnosis but also looking at the entire patient. And part of the work that Dr. LeConte does in palliative care, that's critical. Palliative care does not mean that we're stopping treatment. Palliative care means that from the day one, when you get that diagnosis, we can we consider you a cancer survivor. And so from the very beginning, you should not be in pain. You should, it doesn't mean that the medicine's working better because you're in tons of pain. No, you talk to your doctor and your doctor works with you to make sure that you're not in pain. But if we don't have the research, if we don't participate in the research, such as the All of Us Project, such as the projects that Dr. LeConte does, we're not at that table either. And so it's important that diverse voices are heard when we go to speak with legislators, but it's also important that diverse individuals are participating in research such as clinical trials.
Dr. LeConte, would you like to respond?
Yeah, Deb is so good. I wish I could just record her and replay her all the time. The one thing I wanted to touch on related to mental health that I don't think we've talked about yet is the types of recovery approaches. And, for years, it was just AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, one size fits all. Either you run the program or you don't. And, if you don't, you're choosing to be an alcoholic kind of thing, which is really victim blamey to start with. But AA was started by white men, and it really may not be the right approach for everybody. There's a really great book called Quit Like a Woman, which goes into why AA was not a good fit for this woman. But it may not be a good fit for a number of people for a number of reasons. And I think we've realized harm reduction is a reasonable strategy here. But to do harm reduction, you have to have access to qualified doctors that treat substance use. It's complicated. There's lots of medical treatments and approaches. There's lots of things to take into consideration, including medical diagnoses and harms related to prior drinking. And a lot of people, there's no capacity in health systems to refer lots of patients, or they don't know who to refer to, or the insurance doesn't cover it. There's just barrier after barrier after barrier. And, you contrast that with how easy we just said it is to get a beer. Quitting is hard to do, and we need to support people through that in whatever way is best for them. And we need to really underscore the wins, which may not just be full sobriety for everybody all the time. It may be reducing the amount that you drink, but not fully quitting. So that was my one sidebar thought there. But I completely agree with Deb that, the more voices at the table in these trials, the better we will get in caring for all patients. It's critically and vitally important.
Dr. LeConte, you mentioned that some of your patients, they continue to drink. How do you handle that with them? Mm-hmm. Do you look at the amount that they drink, and does that determine the types of medications that you will provide to them?
Yeah, I just try to have an open line of communication. So first thing is, most doctors aren't even asking about alcohol use. So normalizing that alcohol consumption is part of what we want to know about as people helping you be as healthy as possible. So I ask about it pretty frequently, especially in patients that have flagged that they have high alcohol consumption. I don't get shocked at any number anymore, because when your doctor acts surprised or shocked, that can be very stigmatizing to a patient. And so whatever that number is, no judgment. That's where we're starting from. Let's just figure out a plan moving forward. I try to assess how interested they are in reducing or cutting down. I think, as Dr. Izzard said earlier in the call, if the patient doesn't want to cut down, it doesn't matter how much the doctor wants it for them. So trying to understand how much they want to. And then talking through what are the options for getting them to reduce or get help to start thinking about reduction. Alcohol is one type of substance where you can die from alcohol withdrawal. So we do need to do it carefully. I think a prior caller had talked about being hospitalized for detox, which is commonly done because it has to be carefully monitored. Once people are safely through that, then we can talk about things like gabapentin, which may cut the craving but may help with some of the nerve damage side effects from chemotherapy, or some of these new GLP-1 agonists like Ozempic seem to cut down cravings considerably for alcohol. These are all conversations I have with the patient's primary care doctor, who's really the lead doctor in charge of their health. But we try to come up with a plan together and then reinforce that plan with the patient and understand and set the expectation that there will be places where people relapse or fall down. That's normal. That's expected. That doesn't mean it's a failure. It just means we have to keep trying.
I like that approach. And because you're an oncologist, so you specialize in cancer. And then having that communication with the person's primary physician, that would be like a Dr. Kevin Izzard and you having conversations to really develop a plan for that individual. Can you speak to that?
I think primary care doctors, especially as subspecialists, we are not good about looping them in and having conversations with them, but they really know these patients much, much, much better than I ever will as a subspecialist. And it's critical that the whole team is in agreement about the approach. They often have elements of the history that I don't have that are really important to consider. So, yeah, I'm a big fan of everybody having a primary care doctor, first of all, but subspecialists working with primary care for the best treatment plan.
Thank you. We're going to continue our conversation after the break with Dr. LeConte. This is Karen Dotson from the All of Us Research Program, and we also have Deb Nevels here, also from the Medical College of Wisconsin for Cancer Prevention. We're going to ask if you have questions, please call in at 414-444-5250 and join us at the table. We'll see you back.
Garfield's 502 Rhythm and Blues Festival.
Back to sitting at the table this morning. I'm Karen Dodson from the All of Us Research Program at the Medical College of Wisconsin, and I have along with me Deb Nevels from the Medical College as well in cancer prevention. And Deb, we have a special guest with us today.
We do. We are so lucky. Dr. Noelle LeConte from UW Health, and she is a professor in the Division of Hematology, Medical Oncology, and Palliative Care, working at Carbone Cancer Center up in Madison.
And Dr. LeConte, we want to thank you for joining us this morning and all the work that you have been doing. And we're going to also talk about the All of Us Research program, I should say, the project or the research that you've been doing with that. But before that, we do have a caller on the line that we want to join at the table with us. Good morning, caller. You at the table?
Thank you. Good morning, Miss Karen.
Good morning.
And good morning to all the special doctors and the special guests from Madison as well. Thanks for joining us here in Milwaukee today. Good morning, Mr. Debo. Good morning, Milwaukee. Tyrone W. speaking. Couple different things there. I want to jump back. I may be a little bit late on it there, but I heard you talking about the cancer and the drinking and all. But as a veteran myself, I don't smoke. I did my share, and I do still do some red wine occasionally, and something like that. There may be a beer, but I don't do it like I used to. Not really have been a heavy drinker overall, but still like to engage in. But Dr. Izzard was right. You don't have to have fun to be intoxicated. I learned that a little bit later than I did sooner. But I was wondering if any of you could touch on the military aspect of it, because a veteran myself and then the American Surgeon General, I don't know if they do it so much now, but even when I was in, they was even after running in some, and they would take light them up or smoke them if you got them. I mean, why are you encouraging that when these gentlemen and these ladies have to be healthy, on the battlefield? And so light them up if you got them, and then when the weekend comes, they leave the base and go out and party and drink like a fish. So I'll leave it there. I mean, it's just even the movies, light them up, smoke them if you got them. So I don't know if the Surgeon General is aware of that, and if that's something they've got to cut back on, because if these people have to be healthy, that's the last thing they should be doing is smoking them if they've got them, and even if they don't got them, they shouldn't have them. So I'll leave it there. But thank you very much. Thank you.
Dr. LeConte, can you respond to the caller this morning?
Yeah, I mean, a couple of thoughts. And I hear what he's saying. My brother's in the Army, and I think this is a very real concern and issue, is health behaviors while you're in service. I think the VA has really outstanding mental health support for veterans, including substance use support. So I think that's a model we can all look to. They do it probably better than any other health system in the country. They screen all their patients as well in a much better and systematic way. But the caller was asking about how do we get at the root of when people start drinking, which we know that if you drink heavily as a young adult, you're more likely to drink heavily as an older adult. So I think some targeted outreach directly to enlisted men and women makes a lot of sense to me. I think a lot of when you're in the field or you're deployed, it's just trying to get through it. But could we possibly do something more before deployment or after deployment? I think it's a really excellent point.
Okay. The other thing, Dr. LeConte, you mentioned as far as you have done some research with the All of Us Research Programs database. Can you provide us information related to that? I'm excited to hear and share that with the community. Aren't you, Deb?
I am. It's always fascinating. That's so cool.
Yeah. So, All of Us is critically important, something we could all potentially look into even today and participating in. But it's a United States cohort linked with your electronic health record, extremely powerful data set. We looked at all the people in that data set who had a history of cancer. That was just over 15,000 people. And then those that were linked with their electronic health record was just over 1,800. And we wanted to ask how many patients undergoing cancer treatment, whatever that looks like, were drinking during treatment, thinking it would be quite low. chemotherapy, surgery, these things can affect your ability to drink alcohol or enjoy alcohol. Things taste bad, plus the cost. There's a lot of financial toxicity when people are on treatment where they may not be able to afford things like alcohol. So we thought we would find that it was lower than non-cancer patients. What we found was the opposite, that about 75% of people continued to drink through treatment, and 38% were engaged in hazardous drinking, which is either heavy drinking or binge drinking or both, which is really high, really high. We then broke it down by certain characteristics, gender, age, race, type of cancer. We found that Black patients were less likely to be engaged in hazardous drinking. So that's an interesting point we can talk about further. And patients that were smoking were much more likely to be drinking through cancer treatment. So again, it presents an opportunity for us to do outreach to targeted patients, kind of personalizing our approach to alcohol consumption. But yeah, 75% of patients continue to drink through treatment.
When you mention about the Black patients, can you elaborate more on that for our listeners?
Yes. So if you just ask the question, are Black patients more likely or less likely to be drinking alcohol? They're less likely. But when you look at things like harms from alcohol, Black patients suffer more harms, more organ damage, more hospitalizations, more surgeries. We do not understand why. The other thing that we see is that Black patients have a harder time accessing recovery services. That's probably an insurance issue, but we don't know exactly for sure. So in our study, we just said, whatever your race is, were you less likely or more likely to be drinking during treatment? And Black patients were less likely to be drinking. I don't know why.
And I wanted to also mention too that from the All of Us database, these individuals were self-identified. Is that correct?
Yes, that's right. Exactly right.
So that means that in the survey, when people are taking it, it asked about, your behaviors with drinking and smoking. And so these people actually identified that, yes, I am a drinker. I drink maybe 1 or 2 drinks a week, or how many they drink. And from those individuals, then she was able to pull from that database information related to those individuals that are, suffering with cancer. Or experiencing cancer in some capacity, because we're hoping that they aren't always suffering with it. And from that, you were able then to do your research. Can you respond more to that?
In terms of how we did the research? Or
Yes.
Okay. Yep. So all of us asked a lot of questions. Obviously, we wouldn't want to just say, are you a drinker? Yes, no. Like, there's a lot of detail there. So we were able to understand who was the current drinker based on any alcohol consumption in the last year. And then we were able to look at a question called Audit C, which is a standardized series of questions looking at high-risk alcohol consumption. So frequency of use, quantity of use, and if they had binge drinking, which is, drinking more than 1 serving at a single sitting on a typical day. So this is a standardized measure. All of us didn't create it. It's used across all the alcohol literature, but it tells us not just are you drinking, yes, no, but how much are you drinking, and is it potentially harmful drinking? I didn't design those questions for all of us. I was able to access those as a researcher, and then I used my colleagues in epidemiology, specifically at Washington University in St. Louis, to ask this question using their data. And we have great faith in the data because of how all of us is implemented, that the responses were accurate and correct. And that allows us to draw conclusions that then lead us to further research.
When you say further research, can you just give us an idea what you mean by that?
Yeah, like for example, this asks some questions about, do these patients, are they going to have higher rates of recurrence of their cancer? Are they going to have lower rates potentially? What kind of insurance status do they have? Is there something we could use to target directed outreach? Are there reasons why people do or do not drink? So it just, science is iterative. I think we all learned this through COVID, that we sort of learn little things and then we add on it. And All of Us was really a great example of how lots of different researchers can use the same data set to create different hypotheses and answers, and then that will lead to more research.
That is so important for our listeners. And I'm going to mention to them, if they're interested in joining the All of Us research program, they can call 414-955-2689, or you can go online to joinallofus.org and you can join as well. So that is really critical as far as how you can become and be a part of this big, large database. And I say that because it's the largest one in the world right now. So we are making headway in that area. One of the challenges that we do have is that we have people of color not joining at the rate we would like. And so that's the reason why we're on WNOV right now, because we're looking at how to get our listeners more involved in this program, because we need to be at the table, like Dr. Kevin Izzard mentioned, because we do not want to be on the menu.
Definitely.
All right.
Definitely.
So, Deb, I'm going to turn it over to you as far as talking about more of what you have done with Dr. LeConte and how you interact with her from UW, because she's there in Madison, even though it's
Yeah.
not that far. But yet and still, there's some really strong work that you are doing, integrating together.
Yes, there's UW Carbone Cancer Center specifically, and I can talk a little bit about the research that our researchers between UW Carbone Cancer Center and the Medical College of Wisconsin Cancer Center at Frater. Our goal is to eradicate cancer in the state of Wisconsin and beyond.
I love that. Eradicate means get rid of it, right?
Get rid of it.
Yes.
And Dr. LeConte and I, we both believe that the cure is between here and Madison.
Wow.
It's in Wisconsin.
I hope
because we've got incredible researchers that are doing so much work. And the beauty of the work is just what Dr. LeConte said. She asked questions and looked at questions and can narrow down to communities based upon what the All of Us study was, the program and the database that you all have. But her question is always, and other researchers that she's working with, we're looking at health equity. We're looking at community engagement. And I would say the work that Dr. LeConte, through her community outreach and engagement project that she's doing with the Wisconsin Cancer Collaborative, and the work that we're doing at the Medical College of Wisconsin, together we're combining to make sure that whether you are in urban populations, if you're in the city, if you're in a rural community, if you're in a tribal community, we're able to reach everyone, and nothing that we design is becoming cookie cutter. So like she mentioned, the research that she's doing is looking at, okay, so what outreach and engagement will work best with which population. She mentioned also with alcohol, with AA classes, it was designed by white men, did not have in mind women, period, persons of color, period. So there's been different programs that have changed because of research and understanding that in order to make this impact and have this impact, we got to have the community voice at the table. Part of the work that we're doing too, we have a couple of programs coming up. One will be in Milwaukee, hopefully at the new Thrive On King building, where my new office is, and another program that we're doing at Central Campus for the Medical College up near Green Bay. But both of them will look at multiple myeloma. And we are collaborating with UW Carbone to make sure that we have all the voices at the table, all the great minds at the table, to be able to answer questions that the community has. So we'll get more information to you about that. But I think one of the beautiful things that I really, really stress for our community to understand, you have two outstanding medical colleges right here in your own backyard. So when your kiddos are looking for opportunities, looking for programs, if they just want to get their feet wet, just say, okay, do I want to go to medical school? We have two incredible programs. And one of the important things about one of many important things about Dr. LeConte, she is a professor. And as you heard her talk, she talked and mentioned the importance of culture, mentioned the importance of looking at diverse populations. We have researchers both at the Medical College and at Carbone that are in the classroom teaching these doctors and teaching the future doctors about being inclusive in the care that they give. So you don't have to go far to get that medical education. You don't have to go, and you don't always have to go to medical school. Let me be very clear. Dr. LeConte and other researchers like her, we need people of color that work in research labs. So you like a test tube? Let's go for it. You like working with mouse models? Let's go for it. And if you don't know what a mouse model is, you got to call and ask, and we'll tell you, we can arrange for tours. But the thing is that we have professors like Dr. LeConte who are in those classrooms, who can bring up the questions that may not be asked based upon culture and diversity of individuals. And in training future doctors, that is critical. In training future medical staff, that is critical. So having voices like Dr. LeConte's at the table. And also, I got to mention my boss, Dr. Stacy Young, at the Medical College of
definitely,
Wisconsin.
yes.
Got to mention Dr. Young. Having those voices at the table makes a difference with how our students and how our future doctors will learn. So really encourage you as you are looking for summer. I know we're past the summer, but even in the fall, there's opportunities for med students, for high school students, for college students that are trying to figure out if this is what they want to do. There are opportunities both at UW Carbone Cancer Center and the Medical College of Wisconsin where you can get your feet wet and understand and see, is this something that I want to do?
Deb, how can they reach you if they have questions related to the conversation today?
Definitely. Please feel free to give me a call, and I can and link you to UW Carbone if you're in that area or if you have a student
where
that's
is the
currently there.
Carbone area?
I apologize. UW Carbone is based on UW Madison campus.
All right. I want to make sure people know. So we're talking about Milwaukee area and Madison. So
and beyond.
Okay.
And beyond,
Yes,
because we have partnerships, and Dr. LeConte works a lot with federally qualified health centers. And so so community health centers like the clinics that we have here in Milwaukee Health Services Inc., Progressive, Outreach Community Health Center, Gerald Ignace, 16th Street Community Health Center. I'm sorry if I'm forgetting anybody, but I think that's the ones we have. Dr. LeConte has done a lot of work with community health centers. So there's opportunities throughout the state. We are not limited to just Milwaukee or Madison. Our reach goes beyond that. But if you want to learn more about what we do, I can connect you to Dr. LeConte's version of me at Carbone. My number 414-955-2364.
Can you repeat that for us?
I sure can. I'll try to go slower. 414-955-2364. And please call me, contact me if you have anyone who's interested in medicine, anyone who's interested in med school or working in the healthcare field. One of the things that we often struggle with is finding team members or staff who are interested in working in the research. And research, I do want to point out, like the All of Us Project, like the work that Dr. LeConte did, it is not only research that we are working directly with disease. We also like to do research that looks at behavior. And so you had Dr. Stalion before that looked at changing the way people eat and exercise. Dr. LeConte does work looking at, and Dr. Young does work looking at the social drivers or social determinants of health and the impact on healthcare access. So research that we need you to be a part of, and we want more people, more adults, more kiddos to look at going in as careers. It's not just working in a lab. Sometimes it's working out in the community, which I love doing. But sometimes it's working directly with people on one-on-one. So we need more faces, more people in the place who are interested in doing this type of work.
You know, Deb, you mentioned, and I want to make sure that our listeners really understand and know when you say health equity. Can you break it down so that way they get a clearer picture of what we're looking at here?
Yeah. And I don't know if Dr. LeConte has heard my version of
we can hear
health
hers
equity.
Too, right?
I know this is one thing I was thinking of, and while looking at my multiple pairs of shoes that I have. So if I say everybody needs a shoe, and so I'm going to hand you, let's say, a size 7 stiletto. Now, Not everybody can.
It won't work for me.
It won't work. It won't work for me. I don't know, Dr. LeConte. I don't know. I've seen her in some heels, but I don't know if a size 7 stiletto is what will work. So if I say everybody needs a shoe, will not. Okay, thank you. I'll remember that. But if I say everybody needs a shoe, so I'm gonna give everyone a size 7 stiletto, that's not gonna work. That is not gonna work for everybody. If I say I'm going to talk to you and find out what shoe would you like, what size would you like? Do you want a tennis shoe? Do you want like a general sneaker? Do you want a flat? If I ask you those questions and then go with you to look at different shoes, we try them on, then I'm providing equity. I'm providing access to what you need, and very specifically. So everybody needs shoes, but everybody can't wear a stiletto. Everybody doesn't wear size 7. So when we talk about health equity, that is looking at the individual and identifying what that individual's needs are, not only from the medical standpoint, but also their hierarchy of needs. What is important? So if I'm having trouble, I don't know what my kids are going to eat, I don't feel that I'm safe where I'm living, me coming up to you and saying, so have you had your mammogram, is not a priority. The priority is I need to figure out what my kids are going to eat tonight, and I need to be someplace safe. So once I have those needs, I can possibly address some of the health needs that you are telling me that I need to go and get exams. Equity means that I'm going to look at the entire picture, talk with you one-on-one, and identify what is going to meet your need. And what meets my need, I can't walk in either. And this is what I think Dr. LeConte does this. Dr. Stacey Young does this at the medical college. Dr. LeConte at UW Madison. When you talk to doctors, you have to tell them we can't do cookie cutter. And with cancer treatment, we've identified that. With immunotherapy, I have so much trouble with that word. Immunotherapy, we've identified that your immune system might be working at one level, my immune system might be working at a different level. We need to modify the medication to make sure that it's going to treat A, your cancer, and B, work with your specific immune system. But understand that none of that can happen if we don't have a baseline. And coming back to all of us, again, without having the data, without having the voice, without having the presence, I can't say that I'm going to do something that's going to be equitable because I only have a small number of people to count it on or to look at. I need much broader aspect of individuals to be able to be more inclusive of anything that occurs.
This is Karen Dotson with the All of Us Research Program at the Medical College of Wisconsin. We have Deb Nevels from the Medical College of Wisconsin, and we have Dr.
Noel LeConte. Dr. LeConte.
Yes, from UW.
From Madison, UW Madison, Carbone Cancer Center, just up the street.
Yeah, so we're going to come back before we conclude for today. Doctor, I hope you can hang with us. We'll be back shortly. If you have questions, and call in. It might be a little late for that now, but you can reach us next month, and we can go from there. But we'll see you back on the other side. Thank you.
Garfield's 502 Rhythm and Blues Festival will take place Saturday, July 20th from 11 a.m. until 8 p.m. on Garfield Avenue between 7th Street and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Drive. This unique event is set in the historic Halyard Park neighborhood, renowned as one of Milwaukee's oldest and most vibrant African-American communities. We invite you to join us in celebrating the Halyard's legacy and contributing to a day filled with music, culture, and community spirit.
Together, we can make a meaningful impact and create lasting connections within our city. Join WNOV as we will be hosting the Jazz and Blues Stage on 4th and Garfield. This event is being sponsored by historic King Drive Big, Duber Law Office, Planned Parenthood, Greater Milwaukee Urban League, the Business Council of Milwaukee, Reed's New Golden Gate Funeral Home, Educators Credit Union, and WNOV, the voice of the community.
For the ultimate sports betting experience, get in the game at Potawatomi Sportsbook. Unleash your inner champion with dozens of betting kiosks, a VIP deck, high-end bar, first-class restaurant, broadcast booth, a 2,000 square foot video wall, and more. It's a sports fan's paradise, 24/7. Bet above the rest. Only at Potawatomi Casino Hotel, Milwaukee. Visit the website for more. Must be 21 years old. All bets must be made on site.
Great impressions will exceed your expectations. Great impressions, perceptions, everything.
Looking to leave a lasting impression? Look no further.
And also with Dr. LeConte she's an oncologist at UW-Madison and has done extensive research related to alcohol and cancer. And Dr. LeConte, we have about 2 minutes left. What do you have for our community to say in conclusion?
Well, I just want to say every time I'm on a panel with Deb, I always feel like I've gone to church after I hear her talk. She is so good at what she says. I totally agree with the equity discussion. I think what I work on as a professor is breaking down systems barriers that make equity harder. Things like policies and approaches that unfairly disadvantage certain populations. I think what I'd like to say is I'll speak on behalf of Deb too. We are always happy to come and talk in the community about alcohol and cancer. So please feel free if you'd like us to come to visit you and speak to your group. And lastly, just think about alcohol as a carcinogen and use that information when you make decisions about what and how often you drink. And thank you for the opportunity to be on this call. It's been awesome.
Yeah, thank you so much for calling in today. It's always great to hear from a specialist, right, Deb? It is wonderful to hear from a specialist. So thank you for joining us. Just wanted to let the community know a couple things that, Deb, if people have questions related to our conversation today, how can they reach you?
Yes, 414-955-2364.
And also, if you are interested in joining the All of Us Research Program, you can call us at 414-955-2689, or you can go to joinallofus.org. There are a couple things that just a couple places we're going to be this month that I want to mention to people, that we're going to be also at Frater McKinley Health on July 10th. That's this coming Wednesday from 8:30 to 4:30. Our staff will be there. If you're interested and want to join the All of Us Research Program, please feel free. That location is 1271 North 6th Street. And also we have community outreach Fridays, July 12th and the 26th from 9 to 2. As I mentioned, thank you so much for joining us at the table today. I had Dr. LeConte and also Deb Nevels and Dr. Kevin Izzard. It's been a wonderful, I want to say it's been a blast. So anyway, thank you, and we'll talk to you next month. Have a good week.
Bye-bye.